Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the main view screen. The exploration ship had been traveling through space for 3 months, mapping new systems on the edge of human territory. Jake was tired but happy. They had found 2 planets that could support human life and several asteroid fields rich in rare metals. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station, "I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her console. Amy was the best sensor operator he had ever worked with. If she said something was strange, it was worth checking. "What do you see?" Jake asked. 5 large ships approaching from the Kepler system. "They're big, Captain. Much bigger than anything we've seen before." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Humans had been exploring space for 50 years, but they had never met another intelligent species. The possibility excited and scared him at the same time. "Can you tell if they're hostile?" Jake asked. "Unknown, sir. They're not broadcasting any signals I can understand. But, Captain, they're moving very fast. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Jake nodded. "Send a message on all frequencies. Tell them we're explorers from Earth, and we come in peace." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Message sent, Captain." They waited. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Jake could see the worry on his crew's faces. There were only 35 people on the Liberty. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. "Captain," Amy said suddenly, "they're responding." "Put it on speakers." A strange voice filled the bridge. It sounded like someone talking underwater with a lot of bubbles. The computer tried to translate, but the words came out broken and hard to understand. "Primitive, mammals, surrender, tribute, Zephyrian Empire, obey." Jake felt his heart sink. These aliens, whoever they were, didn't sound friendly. "Amy, can you clean up the translation?" "Working on it, sir. The computer is learning their language patterns." A few minutes later, the voice came through much clearer. "Attention, primitive mammals. You have entered space controlled by the mighty Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your ship immediately and prepare to pay tribute to your new masters. Resistance is futile. You have 10 minutes to comply." The bridge crew looked at Jake. He could see fear in their eyes, but also determination. These were good people who had signed up to explore the galaxy, not to bow down to alien bullies. "Amy, open a channel." "Channel open, Captain." Jake stood straight and spoke in his calmest voice. "This is Captain Jake Miller of the Earthship Liberty. We are peaceful explorers conducting scientific research. We have no quarrel with your empire, but we will not surrender our ship or pay tribute to anyone. We request diplomatic talks to resolve this situation peacefully." The response came quickly and was full of anger. "Foolish mammals! We are Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. We have conquered 300 star systems. Your pathetic single ship is nothing to us. You will surrender now or be destroyed." Jake looked at his crew. Lieutenant Scott Davis, his tactical officer, gave him a small nod. Jake had served with Scott for 8 years. He trusted him completely. "Amy, what do our sensors tell us about their ships?" "They're big, Captain. Each one is about 3 times our size. They appear to be using some kind of biological technology. The hulls look like they're grown rather than built. I'm detecting powerful energy weapons." Jake made his decision. "Send another message. Tell them we decline their generous offer and request they leave human space immediately." "Sir," Scott spoke up quietly. "They're powering weapons." "I see them, Scott. Raise shields and prepare defensive systems." The Liberty shuddered as the alien weapons hit their shields. Bright purple energy beams lit up the space around them. Jake was amazed that the shields held. The Liberty had been built for exploration, but human engineers always planned for the worst. Shields holding at 90%, Scott reported. Those weapons are strong, but our defensive systems are handling them. Return fire, Jake ordered. With pleasure, Captain. The Liberty's guns were small compared to the alien weapons, but they were incredibly precise. Scott's shots hit exactly where he aimed them. The aliens had powerful shields, but they flickered and sparked under the human weapons. Their technology is different from ours, Scott said with excitement in his voice. Their shields are strong against energy weapons, but our kinetic rounds are getting through. Jake watched as the 5 alien ships tried to surround them. They moved like giant fish swimming through water. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Amy, can we outrun them? Yes, sir. Our engines are much more efficient than theirs. I don't think they can catch us. Then let's show them what human engineering can do. The Liberty spun around like a dancer and shot forward at incredible speed. The alien ships tried to follow, but they were too slow and clumsy. Jake's ship danced between their weapons fire, dodging and weaving like a fighter jet in an old war movie. Incredible, Scott whispered. They're firing everything they have. At us, but they can't hit us. Jake smiled grimly. Human ships were built by people who had learned to fly in the atmosphere of Earth, where you had to deal with wind and weather and gravity. These aliens had probably never had to worry about such things. Prepare for hyperspace jump, Jake ordered. Jump coordinates set for Earth, Captain. Execute. The stars around them stretched into lines as the Liberty jumped into hyperspace. In seconds, they were light years away from the alien fleet. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Amy spoke. Up. Captain, I recorded everything. The weapons, the ships, their language. Command will want to see this. Jake nodded. He felt tired and worried. Humans had just met their first alien species, and it had not gone well. These Zephyrians seemed to think humans were weak and stupid. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Set course for Earth, best possible speed, Jake said. Send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we've made first contact and it wasn't friendly. Tell them to prepare for war. As the Liberty raced toward home, Jake stared at the stars and wondered what would happen next. The Zephyrians had hundreds of ships and controlled hundreds of worlds. But they had made one big mistake. They had threatened Earth, and humans didn't take threats lying down. The galaxy was about to change forever. On the waterworld of Aquinas Prime, High Commander Velthos floated in his command pool, listening to Admiral Kethvar's report. The Zephyrian leader's gills fluttered with amusement as he heard about the encounter with the human ship. So these mammals think they can refuse the mighty Zephyrian Empire? Velthos laughed, sending bubbles through the water. How many ships did they have? Just one, High Commander, Kethvar replied, his voice carrying shame. But it was faster than our vessels and its weapons were surprisingly effective. Velthos stopped laughing. One ship held off 5 of our cruisers? Yes, High Commander. Their defensive systems were unlike anything we've seen, and their maneuverability... Kethvar paused. They moved like nothing I've ever witnessed. Velthos waved a webbed hand dismissively. No matter. They probably put all their best technology into one ship to impress us. Send the 43rd Pacification Fleet to their home system. 50 ships should be more than enough to deal with these upstart mammals. High Commander, perhaps we should study them more before... Are you questioning my judgment, Admiral? Velthos's voice turned cold. No, High Commander. I will prepare the fleet immediately. Meanwhile, light years away on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the Pentagon's Strategic Command Center reading Captain Miller's report for the third time. The words didn't get any better with repetition. "How long until the Liberty arrives?" she asked Commander Ryan Brooks, her intelligence chief. 6 hours, Admiral. Captain Miller is pushing his engines to the limit. Lisa nodded. She had known Jake Miller for 15 years. He was one of their best exploration captains, calm and smart. If he was worried enough to risk burning out his engines getting home, the situation was serious. "Ryan, what do we know about this Zephyrian Empire?" Ryan pulled up data on the main screen. "Based on the Liberty's sensor readings, they're an aquatic species. Their ships appear to be biological, grown rather than built. They claim to control 300 star systems." 300? Lisa felt a chill. That would make them the largest power in this part of the galaxy. "Yes, Admiral. And from their behavior they seem to view other species as inferior." Classic imperial expansion pattern. Lisa turned to her staff. "Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like humanity is about to face its first interstellar war. I want all fleet commanders called back to Earth immediately. Cancel all leave and activate the reserve fleets." Captain Amy Foster, who had served as Lisa's aide before joining the Liberty, stepped forward. "Admiral, what about the Titan Project?" Lisa paused. The Titan Project was humanity's deepest secret. Hidden shipyards in the outer system had been building advanced warships for 20 years, just in case humanity ever faced a major threat. Most people thought it was a waste of money. Lisa was beginning to think it might save their species. "Activate it," she said quietly. "All of it." Across the solar system, secret messages went out to hidden bases. On the dark side of the moon, massive doors opened for the first time in years. In the asteroid belt, hollowed-out rocks revealed themselves to be disguised shipyards. Near Pluto, experimental ships that had never seen combat began powering up their weapons. President Kate Johnson arrived at the Pentagon 3 hours later. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone in the room knew she was tougher than steel. "How bad is it, Lisa?" she asked. "We're facing an empire with hundreds of ships and centuries of experience. They attacked one of our ships without provocation and demanded we surrender." Kate's expression didn't change. "What are our options?" "We can try diplomacy, but based on their first message, I don't think they're interested in talking. We can surrender and hope they're merciful. Or we can fight." "What are our chances if we fight?" Lisa looked at the data on her screens. Human ships were newer and more advanced, but they were vastly outnumbered. "Unknown, Madam President. We've never faced anything like this before." Kate was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up straighter. "I didn't become president to surrender humanity to alien bullies. Do what you need to do, Admiral. If they want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." When the Liberty finally arrived at Earth, Captain Miller was rushed directly to the Pentagon. He looked tired but determined as he briefed the Earth Council on what he had seen. "Their ships are impressive, but they fight like they've never faced real opposition," he explained. "They expect enemies to either run away or fight in formation like they do. They weren't ready for our tactics." "What do you mean?" asked General Pete Johnson, head of the Marine Corps. "They moved like a school of fish, sir. All together, following patterns. When we started dodging and weaving, they couldn't adapt. It was like they'd never seen anything move the way we do." Ryan Brooks leaned forward. "Captain, in your opinion, what's their biggest weakness?" Jake thought for a moment. "Arrogance, sir. They completely underestimated us. They thought one ship could defeat their entire patrol fleet just by demanding surrender. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we're threatened. Admiral Carter stood up. Then we'll make sure they learn. Ryan, I want everything we know about their technology sent to our weapons designers. If their shields work differently than ours, we need to adapt. Already on it, Admiral. Dr. Sarah Lewis thinks she can modify our kinetic weapons to be more effective against biological armor. Good. And I want Captain Miller to brief every ship captain in the fleet. They need to know exactly what we're up against. As the meeting ended, Lisa stayed behind with President Johnson. Kate, there's something else. Our deep space sensors picked up a large fleet moving toward the outer colonies. 50 ships, just like the Zephyrians threatened. How long do we have? 2 weeks? Maybe 3? Kate nodded grimly. Then we'd better be ready. How many ships can we field? Including the Titan Project vessels. About 40. 40 against 50. Not great odds. Lisa smiled for the first time all day. Madam President, those aren't just any 40 ships. They're human ships, crewed by humans who don't know how to give up. I like our chances. Outside the Pentagon, Captain Scott Davis was already working with the fleet's tactical officers, planning new strategies based on what they had learned about Zephyrian fighting methods. In secret labs, scientists worked around the clock to adapt human weapons for alien enemies. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They were used to easy victories against primitive species who couldn't match their technology or numbers. But they had never faced humans before. They were about to learn why that mattered. Earth began preparing for war, and across human space, the word spread quickly. The aliens were coming, but humanity would be ready. They always were. War Admiral Nexus High led his 50-ship fleet toward the human colony of New Boston with complete confidence. The Zephyrian commander floated in his command pool, studying the tactical display that showed the small human world ahead. Scanner. Report, he ordered. The planet shows typical mammal settlement patterns, his sensor operator replied. Approximately 2 million inhabitants. Primitive agriculture and light industry. No significant orbital defenses detected. Nexus High's gills fluttered with satisfaction. This would be a quick and easy conquest. The humans would see his magnificent fleet and surrender immediately, just like every other species the Empire had encountered. Sir, the sensor operator continued, I'm detecting 6 small ships moving to intercept us. 6 ships? Nexus High laughed, sending bubbles through his breathing water. These mammals are even more foolish than I thought. Signal the fleet to prepare for combat formation. We'll destroy their pathetic vessels and then demand the planet's surrender. Captain Scott Davis stood on the bridge of the UHS Defender, watching the massive Zephyrian fleet approach. His ship was one of 6 human frigates that had been rushed to defend New Boston. Each ship carried only 30 crew members, making them tiny compared to the alien vessels. Captain, called Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station, the alien fleet is moving into attack formation. 50 ships confirmed. Scott nodded calmly. He had studied the sensor recordings from the Liberty's encounter for hours. He knew what they were facing. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Execute Plan Delta. Remember, we're not trying to win a straight fight. We're trying to survive long enough to show them what human tactics can do. The human ships spread out into a loose formation that looked random to Zephyrian eyes. The aliens were used to enemies that fought in neat lines, ship beside ship like an ancient naval battle. This scattered approach made no sense to them. All ships, weapons free, Scott commanded. Let's give them a lesson in human warfare. War Admiral, Nexus High watched in confusion as the human ships began moving in seemingly chaotic patterns. They didn't form a battle line or group together for mutual support. Instead, they darted around like insects. "What are they doing?" he asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, sir. Their formation appears to have no strategic purpose." "No matter. All ships open fire. Destroy these pests quickly." Purple energy beams lit up space as 50 Zephyrian ships fired at the 6 human vessels. But the humans weren't where the aliens expected them to be. They had scattered in 3 dimensions, using the full volume of space instead of fighting on a flat plane like ships on an ocean. Captain Davis watched his tactical display as Zephyrian weapons missed his ships by hundreds of kilometers. The aliens were firing where they thought the humans would be, not where they actually were. "Return fire," Scott ordered. "Target their weapon systems, not their hulls." The human ships used kinetic weapons, solid projectiles fired at incredible speeds. Unlike energy weapons, these rounds didn't announce themselves with bright beams. They were nearly invisible until they hit their targets. Lieutenant Foster, now serving as Scott's tactical officer, smiled as her first shots struck a Zephyrian cruiser. "Direct hit on their forward weapons array. That ship is out of the fight." Across the battle, similar scenes played out. Human gunners didn't try to destroy the alien ships outright. Instead, they targeted specific systems with surgical precision. Weapon batteries, sensor arrays, and engine clusters were systematically disabled by accurate fire. War Admiral Nexus High felt panic rising in his throat as his ships began reporting damage. Somehow, the tiny human vessels were striking his fleet with devastating accuracy while avoiding almost all return fire. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Sir, they're using 3-dimensional tactics we've never seen before. Our weapons can't track their movement patterns." "Then get closer. Cut off their escape routes." The Zephyrian fleet tried to surround the human ships, but it was like trying to catch birds with fishing nets. Every time they thought they had a human vessel trapped, it would dart away in an unexpected direction. Captain Davis watched the aliens' clumsy attempts to corner his ships. "Amy, what's their reaction time to course changes?" "About 4 seconds, Captain. They're not used to rapid maneuvering." "Perfect. Signal the fleet. Execute Tactic 7. The human ships suddenly stopped their chaotic movement and formed into 3 pairs. Each pair worked together like wolves hunting, with one ship drawing fire while the other attacked from an unexpected angle. Captain Ben Murphy, commanding the UHS Ranger, coordinated with Captain Danny Clark on the UHS Storm. While Danny's ship attacked a Zephyrian cruiser head-on, Ben swung around behind it and disabled its engines with a precise shot. "This is incredible," Ben said over the fleet communication channel. "They have no idea how to fight multiple small targets." The Zephyrians had spent centuries conquering species that fought like they did. Massive fleets meeting in head-on battles where numbers and firepower decided the outcome. They had never faced an enemy that used speed, coordination, and precision instead of brute force. War Admiral Nexus High watched in horror as his fleet was systematically taken apart. 17 of his ships had been disabled, their crews still alive, but their vessels helpless. The humans had achieved something no enemy had ever done. They had defeated Zephyrian ships without destroying them. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the humans are signaling us." "Put it through." Captain Davis's voice came through clearly. "Zephyrian fleet, this is Captain Scott Davis of the Human Defense Force. You have entered our space without permission and attacked our ships. Leave immediately, or we will continue to disable your vessels until none can fight." Nexus High couldn't believe what he was hearing. 6 tiny ships were giving orders to his mighty fleet, but 17 of his vessels were already drifting helplessly, and the humans showed no signs of slowing down. "This is War Admiral Nexus High. You cannot defeat the Zephyrian Empire with such a small force." "We're not trying to defeat your empire," Scott replied. "We're just protecting our people. But if you stay here, we'll keep shooting. Your choice." For the first time in his military career, Nexus High felt fear. These mammals fought like nothing he had ever seen. They were precise, coordinated, and utterly fearless. His fleet outweighed theirs 10-1, but it didn't matter. "All ships," he ordered reluctantly, "withdraw to the jump point. We return to report to High Command." As the Zephyrian fleet limped away, Scott allowed himself a small smile. They had done the impossible, driven off a fleet 10 times their size without losing a single ship. "Captain," Amy said, "we're receiving a message from New Boston. The colonists want to know if the danger is over." Scott looked at his tactical display, which still showed 18 disabled Zephyrian ships drifting in space. "Tell them the immediate threat is gone." "But Amy—" "Yes, sir. This is just the beginning. They'll be back with more ships and new tactics. We need to be ready." The news of the battle spread quickly through human space. 6 ships had defeated 50. It was impossible, but it had happened. For the first time since the crisis began, humans started to believe they might actually survive this war. But on Aquinas Prime, High Commander Velthos was learning that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the war room deep beneath the Pentagon, studying the star charts spread across the central table. The victory at New Boston had bought them time, but she knew the Zephyrians would return with more ships and better tactics. "Defense isn't enough," she said to her assembled staff. "If we just sit here and wait for them to attack, they'll eventually overwhelm us with numbers. We need to take the fight to them." Commander Ryan Brooks looked uncomfortable. "Admiral, we're talking about attacking an empire that controls 300 star systems. That's a big risk." Lisa nodded. "It is. But right now they think humans are just another primitive species that got lucky once. If we hit them hard and fast, we can make them reconsider this whole war." Captain Ben Murphy, who had just returned from the New Boston battle, leaned over the star charts. "What kind of target are you thinking about, Admiral?" "Something that will hurt their ability to build more ships." "Ryan, what do we know about their industrial capacity?" Ryan activated a holographic display showing Zephyrian space. "Their main shipbuilding facility is here, at Reef Kata. It's heavily defended, but it produces about 60% of their military vessels." "How heavily defended?" asked Captain Danny Clark. 24 defense platforms, plus a permanent fleet of 8 cruisers. The platforms are built into the planet's ring system, so they're hard to target. Lisa studied the tactical information. It would be a difficult target, but not impossible. "How many ships can we spare for the attack?" 12 destroyers from the Titan Project fleet," Ryan replied. "They're our newest and fastest ships." "Who do we have to command them?" "Captain Ben Murphy has the most experience with Zephyrian tactics after New Boston." Ben straightened. "I'd be honored, Admiral, but 12 ships against that kind of defense." "You won't be fighting the defenses head-on," Lisa interrupted. "We're going to use something the Zephyrians have never seen before." She activated another display showing a sleek black ship unlike anything in the human fleet. "Meet the UHS Phantom, our first stealth destroyer. Captain Sarah Lewis has been testing it for 6 months." Captain Lewis stepped forward. She was young for a ship commander, but her record was impressive. "The Phantom can phase through most known shielding systems using quantum manipulation technology. We tested it against our own defenses last month. It's completely invisible to conventional sensors. Ben whistled softly. How many ships like that do we have? Just one, Lisa admitted. It's still experimental, but combined with conventional tactics, it might be enough to crack their defenses. 2 days later, Ben found himself commanding a strike fleet of 12 human destroyers as they approached the edge of Zephyrian space. The ships were spread out over several light years, using hyperspace jumps to coordinate their approach. All ships, this is Murphy, he said over the fleet communication channel. Remember, we're not here to conquer anything. We hit the shipyards, disable what we can, and get out before reinforcements arrive. Captain Sarah Lewis, aboard the invisible Phantom, confirmed her position. I'm moving into the system now. Defense platforms are active, but they can't see me. The Reef Kata system was beautiful in a deadly way. The planet was surrounded by gleaming rings of ice and rock, and embedded in those rings were the Zephyrian defense platforms. Each platform was the size of a small moon and bristled with weapons. Ben, this is Sarah, came Lewis's voice over the radio. I'm seeing something interesting here. The platforms are all connected by energy conduits running through the ring system. If I can disrupt the main power junction... Do it, Ben ordered. We'll begin our attack run as soon as you give the signal. Sarah guided the Phantom through the ring system, invisible to the Zephyrian sensors. The quantum phase technology allowed her ship to pass through solid matter, making her nearly impossible to detect or stop. Found it, she whispered to herself, as she located the central power distribution hub. It was a massive crystalline structure floating in the middle of the ring system, pulsing with energy that fed all 24 defense platforms. All ships, this is Lewis. Beginning attack run on the power hub. You'll have maybe 10 minutes before they restore power to the platforms. Sarah's weapons charged up, and she fired everything she had at the crystal structure. The Phantom's guns were designed for precision work, and they found exactly the right spot. The hub exploded in a cascade of energy that knocked out power to half the defense platforms. Now, Ben shouted to his fleet. All ships, attack pattern Delta, hit the shipyards, and disabled platforms. 11 human destroyers materialized out of hyperspace around Reef Kata, their weapons already firing. The active defense platforms tried to respond, but they were designed to fight large fleets attacking from one direction, not small ships coming from everywhere at once. Captain Danny Clark led the first wave against the orbital shipyards. His ship, the UHS Storm, used kinetic torpedoes to tear through the biological construction bays where new Zephyrian ships were being grown. This is incredible, Danny reported. These shipyards are alive. The ships are literally grown like plants in a garden. Then let's do some weeding, replied Captain Amy Foster from the UHS Defender. Her ship's weapons destroyed 3 partially completed cruisers with surgical precision. The 8 Zephyrian cruisers assigned to defend Reef Kata tried to respond, but they faced the same problem their fleet had encountered at New Boston. The human ships moved too fast and fought too unpredictably for their tactics to work. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Torres led the Marine assault on the main construction facility. His soldiers wore powered armor that let them move through space like tiny fighters, and they carried weapons specifically designed to fight in zero gravity. Torres to Murphy, the Marine commander reported. We've secured the main computer core. I'm downloading everything they have on ship construction and strategic planning. How long do you need? Ben asked, watching his tactical display as Zephyrian reinforcements began moving toward the battle. 5 more minutes, sir. You've got 3. We need to leave before their main fleet gets here. The human attack had lasted exactly 42 minutes when Ben gave the order to withdraw. In that time, they had destroyed 60% of Reef Kata's shipbuilding capacity, disabled 16 defense platforms, and captured detailed intelligence about Zephyrian military operations. But most importantly, they had rescued over 3,000 alien prisoners who had been forced to work in the shipyards, members of species the Zephyrians had conquered and enslaved. "Admiral," Ben reported to Lisa Carter as his fleet jumped to safety, "mission accomplished, but there's something else you need to know." "What is it?" "The Zephyrians have been using slave labor to build their ships. We found thousands of prisoners from dozens of different species. They're all begging us to help free their homeworlds." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. This war was bigger than just humans versus Zephyrians. The Empire had enslaved entire civilizations, and now those slaves were looking to humanity for salvation. "Bring them to Earth," she ordered. "We need to hear their stories." Captain Sarah Lewis, still invisible in the Phantom, lingered near Reef Kata to observe the aftermath. What she saw made her smile grimly. Zephyrian ships were arriving from all over the sector, but they were too late. The shipyards were burning, and the humans were gone. "Admiral Carter," she reported, "you should see this. The Zephyrians are in complete panic. They're sending messages on all frequencies, screaming about how it's impossible for mammals to penetrate their defenses. What's their reaction time for reinforcements? They had ships here within an hour, but they're coming from random directions. No coordination, no plan. They're just throwing everything they can find at the problem." Lisa nodded with satisfaction. The attack had accomplished more than just material damage. It had shaken Zephyrian confidence and shown their subject species that the Empire could be defeated. Back on Earth, news of the successful raid spread quickly. For the first time since the war began, humans felt like they might actually win. But Lisa knew this was just the beginning. The Zephyrians would respond to this humiliation with everything they had. "Ryan," she said to her intelligence chief, "start analyzing the data Torres captured. I want to know everything about their military structure, their weak points, and their plans." "Already on it, Admiral. But there's something else. According to these files, the Zephyrians have something they call Leviathan-class ships. They're much larger than anything we've seen so far." Lisa looked at the preliminary data and felt her stomach drop. The Leviathans were massive bioships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. The Empire had been holding back their best weapons, treating the conflict with humans as a minor police action. That was about to change. The real war was just beginning. High Commander Veltos floated in his command pool on Aquinas Prime, staring at the reports from Reef Kata with growing horror. The mammals had destroyed the Empire's primary shipyard in less than an hour, using tactics that made no sense to any Zephyrian military strategist. "How did they penetrate our defenses?" he demanded of war sage Depth Mira, the Empire's most brilliant tactical mind. The ancient Zephyrian's gills fluttered slowly as she considered the data. "High Commander, these humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. Look at this. Battle analysis." She activated a holographic display showing the attack on Reef Kata from multiple angles. They attacked from 11 different directions simultaneously, using ships that moved independently rather than as a coordinated fleet. When our defense platforms tried to target them, they were already somewhere else. But how did they get past the sensor grid? According to the survivors, they had a ship that could phase through solid matter. Our sensors detected nothing until it was too late. Velthos felt his breathing water grow cold. In 500 years of imperial expansion, no enemy had ever possessed technology that could bypass Zephyrian defenses so completely. "There's more, High Commander," Depth Mira continued. "They rescued the slave workers instead of killing them. This suggests they have moral constraints that we can potentially exploit. But it also means they now have detailed intelligence about our operations." "How detailed?" "Complete blueprints of our ship designs, locations of major military bases, and worst of all, they know about the Leviathans." Velthos made his decision. "Activate the Abyssal Guard. Deploy 3 Leviathan-class bioships to human space. These mammals need to learn what happens when they challenge the Empire's might." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter was having the worst day of her military career. The intelligence data captured from Reef Kata had revealed the true scope of what humanity was facing. "The Leviathans are how big?" she asked Dr. Sarah Lewis, who was analyzing the alien technical data. "Each one is approximately 15 kilometers. "Long," Sarah replied, her voice shaking slightly. "They're not built, Admiral. They're grown. Living ships with biological armor that can regenerate damage and weapon systems that channel the creature's own life energy." Commander Ryan Brooks pulled up tactical projections on the main screen. "According to the intelligence files, the Empire has 12 of these ships. They've never needed to use more than one to conquer an entire star system." Lisa studied the data with growing dread. The largest human ship was barely 2 kilometers long. "What are their weaknesses?" "Unknown," Sarah admitted. "The files suggest they're nearly invincible in conventional combat, but there might be biological vulnerabilities we can exploit." "How long before they reach human space?" "Based on their travel speed, approximately 1 week." Lisa looked around the room at her staff. These were the best military minds humanity had to offer, and they all looked terrified. She didn't blame them. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to unveil our ace in the hole. Project Stellar Lance is now operational." Captain Alex Turner had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. The UHS Excalibur was humanity's first true battlecruiser, built in secret using technology that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. At 5 kilometers long, it was massive by human standards, though still dwarfed by the approaching Leviathans. "Captain Turner," Admiral Carter's voice came through the secure communication channel, "you are hereby authorized to deploy the Excalibur and its experimental weapons systems. Your mission is to intercept and engage the Leviathan fleet before it reaches the inner colonies." Alex stood on the bridge of his ship, surrounded by the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. The Stellar Lance weapon system alone had taken 5 years to develop. A focused energy beam that could channel the power of a star into a weapon capable of destroying planets. "Admiral, the Excalibur is ready for combat. But I have to ask, are we sure the Stellar Lance will work against biological targets?" "We're about to find out, Captain. You'll have support from the entire Titan Project fleet, but the Excalibur is our best hope of stopping these things." 3 days later, long-range sensors detected the Leviathan fleet approaching the outer rim of human space. Captain Danny Clark, commanding a scout ship, was the first to see them. "Dear God," he whispered as the massive bioships appeared on his sensors. "Control, this is Clark. I have visual on the Leviathan fleet. They're alive." The 3 Leviathans moved through space like enormous sea creatures swimming through an alien ocean. Their hulls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and they trailed streams of organic matter that looked like enormous tentacles. "Size estimate 15 kilometers each, just like the intelligence reports," Danny continued. "But the sensor readings are off the charts. These things are generating enough energy to power a small star. Admiral Carter received the report at Earth Command and immediately activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. The Leviathan fleet has entered human space. Operation Starfall is now in effect. Captain Turner, you are authorized to engage. The UHS Excalibur jumped to hyperspace along with 36 other human warships. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, but against the Leviathans, it still felt pitifully small. Captain Turner stood on his bridge as they emerged from hyperspace near Titan Station, humanity's most heavily fortified outpost. The Leviathans were already there, their massive forms dwarfing everything else in the system. All ships, this is Turner. Engage at maximum range. Do not let those things get close to Titan Station. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Kinetic rounds, energy beams, and missile salvos struck the Leviathans from every direction. The bioship's living armor absorbed most of the damage, but some shots got through, causing streams of luminescent fluid to leak from their hulls. The largest Leviathan, designated War Beast Abyss Core by the Zephyrians, responded by opening weapon ports along its massive flanks. Beams of pure life energy lanced out toward the human ships, and anything they touched simply ceased to exist. "Evasive maneuvers!" Turner shouted as one of the energy beams missed the Excalibur by less than a kilometer. "All ships, spread out and use random movement patterns." Commander Jessica Bell, coordinating the defense from Titan Station, watched in horror as the human fleet tried to damage enemies that seemed almost indestructible. "Captain Turner, our conventional weapons aren't having much effect." "I know. It's time to try the Stellar Lance. All ships, clear firing lanes to the primary. Target." The Excalibur's main weapon began charging, drawing power from the ship's 3 fusion reactors. The process took 2 full minutes, during which Turner's ship was effectively helpless. "Charging at 60%, reported his weapons officer. 80%. Full charge achieved. Stellar Lance ready to fire. Fire! A beam of focused stellar energy erupted from the Excalibur's bow, striking the largest Leviathan amidships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the bioship's living armor began to burn away under the incredible heat, revealing the creature's internal structure. War Beast Abyss Core screamed, and sound that somehow transmitted through the vacuum of space and was picked up by every human ship in the fleet. The massive creature writhed in pain as the stellar lance cut deep into its body. "Direct hit," Turner's tactical officer reported. "The target is severely damaged but still functional." The wounded Leviathan's response was immediate and terrifying. It began growing new armor to replace what had been destroyed while its 2 companions moved to protect it. "Captain," Jessica Bell's voice came from Titan Station, "sensors are showing massive energy buildup in all 3 targets. I think they're preparing some kind of combined attack." Turner realized they had only one chance. "All ships, concentrate fire on the wounded target. If we can destroy one of them, maybe the others will retreat." But the Leviathans had other plans. The 3 bioships began to glow with an eerie light as they channeled their life energy into a combined weapon system that no human had ever seen before. The fate of humanity hung in the balance as 2 completely different approaches to warfare met in the cold vacuum of space. On one side, the technological might of human engineering. On the other, the biological fury of creatures that had been designed for war from the moment of their birth. The battle for Titan Station would determine which philosophy would dominate the galaxy. The 3 Leviathans pulsed with terrifying energy as they prepared their combined attack. Captain Alex Turner watched from the bridge of the Excalibur as the massive bioships aligned themselves in a triangle formation around his fleet. All ships, emergency scatter, Turner ordered. Whatever they're planning, don't let them catch us grouped together. The human fleet spread out across the Titan station system just as the Leviathans released their attack. 3 beams of pure life energy combined into a single weapon that could have destroyed a planet. The beam missed the main human force, but struck an asteroid which simply vanished from existence. Incredible, whispered Dr. Sarah Lewis from her position on the Excalibur's science station. They're converting matter directly into energy. That's theoretically impossible. Tell that to the asteroid, Turner replied grimly. Weapons? Status on the stellar lance? Recharging, Captain. We need 4 more minutes. 4 minutes might as say, well, have been 4 hours. The wounded Leviathan was already regenerating its damaged armor, while its companions moved to attack the human fleet with conventional weapons. Warbeast Abyss Corps had never felt pain like this before. The human weapon had burned through armor that had protected it for 3 centuries, leaving scars that would never fully heal. But instead of retreating, the ancient creature felt something it had never experienced: respect for its enemies. These mammals were not like the other species the Empire had conquered. They fought with intelligence and determination that reminded Abyssacor of its own species in their early days, before they had become tools of the Empire. Commander Jessica Bell coordinated the defense from Titan Station's command center, watching as human ships darted between the massive Leviathans like fighters attacking battleships. It was brave and desperate, and probably hopeless. All fighter squadrons launch immediately, she ordered. Target their weapon systems, not their main hulls. Commander Pete Johnson led the first wave of human fighters toward the Leviathans. His squadron had trained for this moment for months, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of fighting creatures this large. This is incredible, Pete reported as his fighters swarmed around the nearest bioship. The hull is covered in smaller organisms that seem to be firing at us independently. The Leviathans were not just single creatures. They were entire ecosystems, with thousands of smaller organisms living on their hulls and providing defensive fire. Pete's fighters had to dodge not just the main weapons, but also clouds of smaller projectiles fired by creatures no bigger than human fighters. Focus on the big weapon ports, Pete ordered his squadron. If we can blind them, maybe the capital ships can get closer. Meanwhile, Captain Turner was discovering that the stellar lance had unexpected effects on biological targets. While the IABT beam had wounded the Leviathan, it had also caused the creature to emit some kind of distress signal that was affecting the other 2 bioships. Captain, Dr. Lewis reported, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from all 3 targets. It's almost like they're communicating with each other on a level we can't understand. Explain. They're not just individual ships, sir. They're part of some kind of hive mind. When we hurt one, the others felt it too. Turner realized this might be their advantage. If they're connected, then maybe we can use that against them. Sarah, can you analyze their communication frequencies? Working on it, Captain. I'm seeing patterns that suggest emotional content. Fear, anger, and something else. Something that might be doubt? The battle had been raging for 2 hours when Captain Ben Murphy arrived with reinforcements. His task force included 12 more human destroyers and the experimental ship UHS Quantum, equipped with technology that could manipulate space-time itself. Turner, this is Murphy. We're here to help. What's the tactical situation? 3 Leviathans, each one capable of destroying our entire fleet, Turner replied. We've managed to wound one, but they're regenerating damage faster than we can inflict it. Not anymore, came a new voice on the communication channel. Captain Sarah Lewis had arrived in the stealth ship Phantom, invisible to Zephyrian sensors. Sarah, what's your status? Turner asked. I'm inside the damaged Leviathan's hull, she replied calmly. Captain, these things are incredible. They're not just ships. They're living beings with thoughts and emotions. And right now, they're scared. Scared of what? Of us. They've never faced an enemy that could hurt them before. The wounded one is transmitting distress signals that the others can feel. If I can amplify those signals, Sarah's plan was insane. But it was their only hope. Using the Phantom's quantum manipulation technology, she began to amplify the wounded Leviathan's pain signals and broadcast them to its companions. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The 2 healthy Leviathans suddenly stopped attacking and moved to protect their wounded companion. For the first time in the battle, they seemed vulnerable. Now! Turner shouted. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead target while they're distracted. The entire human fleet opened fire on War Beast Abyss Core. Kinetic rounds, energy beams, and experimental weapons struck the creature from every direction. But instead of regenerating like before, the Leviathan's armor began to fail under the sustained assault. Captain Danny Clark, commanding the UHS Storm, noticed something strange. Turner, are you seeing this? The target's bioluminescence is changing color. I see it. Sarah, what does that mean? Sarah's voice came from inside the creature's hull. It's trying to communicate. Captain, I think it wants to surrender. The concept was so alien that Turner almost couldn't process it. A living warship that could think and feel and make decisions about its own fate. All ships cease fire, Turner ordered. Let's see what it has to say. War Beast Abyss Core had lived for 800 years, fighting in dozens of wars across the galaxy. It had destroyed planets and conquered entire star systems in service to the Zephyrian Empire, but it had never faced an enemy like humanity. These mammals fought with a combination of technology and tactics that reminded the ancient creature of its own species before they had been enslaved by the Empire. More importantly, they had shown mercy to defeated enemies and rescued prisoners instead of killing them. Using bioelectric signals that the human computers could translate, Abyss Core sent a message to the human fleet. We understand now. You are not like others. You fight for survival, not conquest. Turner stared at the translated message in amazement. Are you saying you want to end this fight? Yes. Empire uses us as tools. But you show different way. We choose freedom. The implications hit Turner like a physical blow. The Leviathans weren't just weapons. They were sentient beings who had been enslaved by the Zephyrian Empire, just like all the other species humanity had rescued. Captain, Commander Bell's voice came from Titan Station. I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. The Zephyrian fleet is arriving, over 100 ships. Turner looked at his tactical display with growing dread. His fleet was exhausted from the battle with the Leviathans, and now they faced the largest Zephyrian force ever assembled. But then something unexpected happened. The 3 Leviathans moved to position themselves between the human fleet and the approaching Zephyrian ships. Human vessels. Abyss Core's translated voice came over the communication channels. We will protect you. It is time for the Empire to learn that their slaves can choose their own masters. The greatest naval battle in galactic history was about to begin. But the sides were not what anyone had expected. Humans and Leviathans stood together against the Zephyrian Empire, and the galaxy would never be the same. Turner smiled grimly as he prepared for the final battle. All ships, battle stations. Let's show the Empire what happens when you underestimate the power of free will. High Commander Velthos watched the tactical display in his command pool with growing disbelief. The 3 Leviathans that were supposed to crush the human rebellion had instead joined forces with the mammals. "This is impossible," he bubbled, angrily. "The Leviathans have served the Empire for centuries. They cannot simply choose to betray us." War Sage Depthmira floated beside him, studying the battle data. "High Commander, the bioships were never truly loyal to us. We controlled them through biochemical conditioning and threats to their offspring. But these humans have shown them another way. Then we will destroy them all," Velthos declared. "Signal the Grand Fleet. Every available ship is to converge on the human system. We will end this rebellion once and for all." At Titan Station, Captain Alex Turner watched as over 100 Zephyrian ships dropped out of hyperspace. It was the largest fleet the Empire had ever assembled, but for the first time since the war began, Turner felt confident. "All ships, this is Turner. We've got new allies and some advantages the Zephyrians don't know about. Commander Bell, status. On the station's defenses." Jessica Bell's voice came from Titan Station's command center. "All weapons online, Captain. The new gravitational lance batteries are ready for their first combat test." The gravitational lance was humanity's newest weapon, developed in secret over the past 6 months. Instead of using energy or kinetic force, it manipulated gravity itself to tear apart enemy ships at the molecular level. War Beast Abyss Core, Turner addressed the largest Leviathan. "Can your companions understand our tactical communications?" "Yes, human Turner. We share thoughts as you share words. Tell us your plan." Turner smiled. Having telepathic allies was definitely an advantage the Zephyrians hadn't planned for. "Here's what we're going to do," he began, outlining a battle plan that combined human technology with Leviathan biological capabilities in ways that had never been attempted before. The Zephyrian fleet advanced in their traditional formation, a massive wall of ships designed to overwhelm enemies through sheer firepower. Admiral Nexus Ahai, who had been given command of the operation, was confident that superior numbers would prevail. "All ships prepare to engage," he ordered. "Target the human vessels first, then deal with the traitorous bioships." But as the Zephyrian fleet moved into attack range, they discovered that this battle would be unlike anything they had fought before. War Beast Abyss Core and its 2 companions suddenly accelerated to incredible speeds, their living hulls rippling with bioelectric energy. The massive creatures smashed through the Zephyrian formation like living battering rams, their regenerating armor allowing them to absorb damage that would have destroyed any conventional ship. "Impossible!" Nexus High gasped as he watched his carefully planned battle line dissolve into chaos. "How are they moving so fast?" Captain Ben Murphy, commanding a squadron of human destroyers, had the answer. "Because we taught them how to fight, like humans, instead of like Empire slaves." The human ships followed in the wake of the Leviathans, using the chaos to attack Zephyrian vessels with surgical precision. But this time, they weren't alone. The bioships were providing covering fire, with weapons that the Empire had never seen them use before. "Incredible," Dr. Sarah Lewis reported from the Phantom. "The Leviathans have been holding back most of their capabilities. They can generate weapons we didn't even know existed." Abyss Core demonstrated this by opening new weapon ports along its flanks and firing beams of concentrated gravity that crushed Zephyrian ships like tin cans. The ancient bioship had learned to fight for itself instead of just following orders. Commander Pete Johnson led his fighter squadrons in coordinated attacks with smaller organisms that lived on the Leviathan's hulls. The tiny biofighters moved, like schools of fish, overwhelming Zephyrian point defenses through sheer numbers and unpredictable movement patterns. "This is amazing," Pete reported. "The biofighters are learning our tactics in real time. They're adapting to every move the Zephyrians make." Captain Danny Clark, aboard the UHS Storm, coordinated with Titan Station's gravitational lance batteries to target the largest Zephyrian ships. The new weapons proved devastatingly effective against the Empire's bio-armor technology. Direct hit on their flagship, Clark reported as a massive Zephyrian dreadnought simply collapsed in on itself. The gravitational lances are tearing their hulls apart at the molecular level. Admiral Nexus High watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like nothing he had ever encountered. The humans and Leviathans moved together like a single organism, each part supporting the others in ways that defied traditional military doctrine. "All ships, fall back to secondary positions," he ordered desperately. "We need to regroup," and his transmission was cut off as the UHS Excalibur's stellar lance carved through his flagship's hull. Captain Turner had learned to target the command centers of Zephyrian ships, crippling their ability to coordinate their attacks. War Beast Abyss Corps spoke to Turner through their quantum communication link. "The Empire fleet is breaking apart. Their commanders cannot adapt to our new way of fighting." "Good," Turner replied. "But we need to make sure they understand this isn't just a military defeat. This is the end of their old way of thinking." The Leviathan's response surprised him. "Yes, human Turner. We have been tools of oppression for too long. Today we choose to be instruments of liberation." As the battle raged, something extraordinary happened throughout Zephyrian space. The news of the Leviathan's rebellion spread through the empires. Biocommunication networks reaching every enslaved species in their territory. On dozens of worlds, subject peoples who had been forced to serve the Empire for centuries suddenly realized that their masters could be defeated. Rebellions broke out across the galaxy as species that had been conquered long ago rose up against their oppressors. Commander Rachel Smith, monitoring communications from Earth, reported the spreading chaos to Admiral Carter. "Admiral, we're picking up reports of uprisings in over 50 Zephyrian systems. The Empire is collapsing from within." Back at Titan Station, the battle was reaching its conclusion. The Zephyrian fleet had been reduced to scattered remnants fleeing toward the edge of the system. But Captain Turner wasn't interested in pursuit. "All ships, let them go," he ordered. "We've made our point." Admiral Nexus High, aboard one of the few surviving Zephyrian ships, sent a final transmission before retreating. "This is not over, mammals. The Empire will not forgive this defeat." War Beast Abyss Corps' response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every Zephyrian in the fleet would hear it. "The Empire is already over, Admiral. You just haven't realized it yet." As the surviving Zephyrian ships jumped to hyperspace, Turner looked at his tactical display with satisfaction. They had won the battle, but more importantly, they had started a revolution that would reshape the entire galaxy. "Captain," Jessica Bell called from Titan Station, "I'm receiving messages from the liberated species across Zephyrian space. They're asking for our help in establishing free governments." Turner nodded. "Tell them we'll send advisors and supplies, but this is their fight now. We showed them that the Empire could be defeated. The rest is up to them." Dr. Sarah Lewis emerged from the Phantom's quantum phase and docked with the Excalibur. Her analysis of the battle would change human understanding of warfare forever. "Captain," she reported, "the Leviathans aren't just allies. They're teachers. They've shown us that the most powerful weapon isn't technology or firepower. It's the will to be free." As news of the victory spread through human space, people celebrated in the streets of Earth's cities. But Turner knew this was just the beginning. The Zephyrian Empire was crumbling, but building something better in its place would be the real challenge. The galaxy had learned that humans didn't fight just to win wars. They fought to make sure everyone could choose their own destiny. And that lesson would echo through the stars for generations to come. 3 months after the Battle of Titan Station, High Commander Velthos floated alone in his command pool on Aquinas Prime. The reports scattered around him painted a picture of complete disaster. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 500 years, was collapsing. 57 systems have declared independence, War Sage Depthmira reported wearily. The Outer Rim territories are in open rebellion, and our remaining fleet is stretched too thin to respond. Velthos had aged rapidly in the past months. The proud commander who had once dismissed humans as primitive mammals now understood the terrible mistake he had made. "What about the core worlds?" he asked. "Holding for now, but barely. The species we conquered are demanding representation in the government. Some are even suggesting we negotiate with the humans." The word negotiate stuck in Velthos's throat like a piece of poisoned food. But he was beginning to realize it might be their only option. Meanwhile, aboard the UHS Constitution, Admiral Lisa Carter was preparing for the most important meeting in human history. The massive battlecruiser had been chosen as the site for peace negotiations between humanity and what remained of the Zephyrian Empire. "Admiral," Captain Jake Miller reported from the bridge, "the Zephyrian delegation is approaching. Single ship, no escort." Lisa nodded. Jake had been chosen to command the Constitution specifically because he was the first human to encounter the Zephyrians. It seemed fitting that he should be present when the war finally ended. The Zephyrian ship that docked with the Constitution was nothing like their warships. It was elegant and peaceful, designed for diplomacy rather than destruction. But Lisa knew that appearances could be deceiving. High Commander Velthos entered the Constitution's main conference room, surrounded by a bubble of water that allowed him to breathe. He was accompanied by War Sage Depthmira and a small group of advisors. Facing them across the table were Admiral Carter, President Kate Johnson, and Dr. Helen Park, humanity's chief xenobiologist. "Commander Velthos," President Johnson began formally, "thank you for agreeing to these talks." Velthos studied the human leaders carefully. They were smaller than he had expected, but their eyes held a strength that reminded him uncomfortably of the Leviathans. "President Johnson," he replied through his translation device, "I come here not from choice, but from necessity. Your species has accomplished what no other has done in 5 centuries. You have broken the Empire's power." "We didn't set out to break anything," Admiral Carter interjected. "You attacked us. We simply defended ourselves." "Defended yourselves by teaching our own weapons to rebel against us," Depthmira added, with what might have been admiration in her voice. Dr. Helen Park leaned forward. "The Leviathans were never your weapons, War Sage. They were enslaved beings who found their freedom when someone showed them it was possible." "Which brings us to why we're here," President Johnson said. The empire is finished. The question is what comes next. Velthos felt his breathing water grow warm with anger, but he controlled himself. What are your terms? Lisa pulled up a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red areas showed former Zephyrian territory now in rebellion, blue showed human space, and a small yellow region indicated what remained under Empire control. First, she began, immediate cessation of all hostilities between our species. Second, recognition of the independence of all rebellious systems. Third, reparations for the unprovoked attack on human space. And fourth? Velthos asked, dreading the answer. Complete restructuring of your government to include representation from all species in your territory, President Johnson finished. No more empire, no more slaves, a true confederation of free worlds. Velthos was quiet for a long time. The terms were harsh but not vindictive. The humans could have demanded the complete destruction of Zephyrian civilization, but instead, they were offering a chance for redemption. You realize that agreeing to these terms will mean the end of everything my people have built over 5 centuries? He finally said. No, Dr. Park replied gently. It means the beginning of something better. Your people are brilliant engineers and have deep cultural wisdom. Imagine what you could accomplish if you used those gifts to help others instead of conquering them. War Sage Depth Mira spoke up unexpectedly. High Commander, I have studied these humans extensively since our first contact. They possess something we have forgotten, the ability to turn enemies into allies. What do you mean? Look at the Leviathans. We enslaved them, used them as tools of war. The humans freed them and gained powerful allies. They rescued our slave workers and earned the loyalty of dozens of species. Even now, they offer us partnership instead of revenge. Captain Miller, who had been silent during the negotiations, finally spoke. Commander Velthos, when your ships first attacked the Liberty, I thought you were just bullies. But after studying your culture, I realize you were trapped by your own success. You won so many easy victories that you forgot how to do anything except conquer. And what would you have us do instead? Velthos asked. Learn, Miller replied simply. Work with other species instead of ruling them. Explore the galaxy instead of conquering it. Build things that help people instead of weapons that destroy them. President Johnson activated another display, this one showing plans for a massive space station. We're proposing to build a Galactic Council station here at the midpoint between human and Zephyrian space. Representatives from every free species would meet there to discuss trade, exploration, and mutual defense. You would trust us to be part of such an organization? Depth Mira asked with surprise. Trust is earned, Admiral Carter replied, but everyone deserves a chance to earn it. The negotiations continued for 3 days. Velthos found himself grudgingly impressed by the humans' approach to diplomacy. They were firm about their core demands, but flexible about implementation. They seemed genuinely interested in building a lasting peace rather than simply dictating terms to a defeated enemy. On the final day, as they prepared to sign the formal peace treaty, Velthos asked a question that had been bothering him. Admiral Carter, your species could have continued the war. With the Leviathans as allies, you might have conquered our core worlds entirely. Why did you choose peace instead? Lisa thought for a moment before answering. Because conquest would have made us just another empire. We didn't fight this war to gain territory or subjects. We fought to protect our freedom and the freedom of others. Besides, President Johnson added with a slight smile, we've seen what happens to empires that get too big and too proud. They eventually meet someone like us. The peace treaty was signed aboard the Constitution with representatives from dozens of species present. The Zephyrian Empire officially ceased to exist, replaced by the Aquatic Federation, a democratic government that included all the species in former Zephyrian space. As part of the agreement, Captain Alex Turner was promoted to Admiral and given command of the new Galactic Defense Force, a joint military organization that included human ships, reformed Zephyrian vessels, and the 3 Leviathans who had chosen freedom over slavery. Warbeast, Abyss Corps, now serving as the commander of the Leviathan Corps, transmitted a message to the signing ceremony. For 800 years, I served masters who demanded obedience. Today, I choose to serve ideals that demand only courage. Dr. Sarah Lewis was appointed as the first director of the Galactic Council's Science Division, where she would oversee joint research projects between formerly hostile species. Her first project involved studying how the Leviathan's biological technology could be combined with human engineering to create ships that could explore previously unreachable parts of the galaxy. 6 months later, President Johnson stood before the United Nations on Earth, delivering her final address before stepping down from office. When this crisis began, she said, we faced the choice between submission and resistance. We chose resistance, but not for conquest, for principle. We fought not to build an empire, but to prevent others from taking our freedom. She gestured to the view screen behind her, which showed the bustling Galactic Council station where dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old empire. Today, our former enemies are our partners in building something greater than any empire. We've learned that the strongest weapon in the galaxy isn't a star destroyer or a planet killer. It's the simple recognition that every intelligent being deserves the right to choose their own destiny. Admiral Carter, now serving as the Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, stood at the back of the assembly hall. She thought about Captain Miller's first encounter with the Zephyrians and how far everyone had come since then. The Zephyrian Empire had expected to encounter primitive mammals who would surrender at the first sign of superior force. Instead, they had met humans, a species that had learned long ago that survival sometimes required standing up to bullies, no matter how big or powerful they seemed. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in centuries, it was. Ruled not by the strongest, but by those willing to fight for the freedom of all. And at the heart of that revolution were humans, who had proved that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do to an empire is show its subjects that there's a better way to live. As Admiral Carter watched representatives from across the GA,